everyone, welcome, and I'd like to call to order the August Ignite CDA board meeting. If we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment tonight. The agenda is going to be flowing just a little bit different. We'll have our normal public comment at the beginning and towards the end of our agenda. We have two budget hearing resolutions that we will discuss today, and at each one of those hearing or resolutions, the public will have time to comment on that specific resolution item. So we'll start off then with our first public comment. Do we have anybody that wishes to come forward and speak? Not related to the budget items.
Hi, my name is Roger Smith, 810 Bancroft Street. Tonight there's a couple of us here from the Friends of the Spokane River Corridor, FSRC. And I wanted to give you just a little bit of background about our organization. You're going to be hearing a lot from us and about us, I think, in the coming weeks as the mill sites on the Spokane River are considered for various uses. Back in 2013, a grassroots group of concerned citizens was formed to explore opportunities along the Spokane River and at the old mill sites in particular, such as the mill site annexation and development, permanent public access, preservation of that access along the riverfront, trails and trail continuity along the shoreline, and open space preservation in general along the river. In 2014, the mayor and the city council recognized this group's concerns and created an ad hoc committee, an official city ad hoc committee, to come up with input and advice on those topics I mentioned regarding the riverfront. After recommendations were made and the city ad hoc committee was disbanded, a group of concerned citizens hung together and formed the Friends of the Spokane River Corridor, FSRC. In addition to its advocacy role, FSRC has also conducted a public relations Splash of Blue campaign, which you may have seen or heard about recently, to raise public awareness of our river resource and the importance of preserving public access to this river resource. And I might add we have something here in Coeur d'Alene, a once and forever opportunity, we like to call it, that many municipalities would love to have, you know, a blank slate of acreage right on a riverfront that affords us a lot of opportunity for public benefit. We have a couple of positions that we've formalized, and I'll just read those very quickly. The FSRC has adopted two positions regarding the mill site properties. Our positions fully support the intent of a city council resolution which came out in 2014. That city council official resolution read, and I quote, "All city staff and staff actions regarding the Spokane River Corridor should consider maximizing the public acquisition of riverfront property, protecting the riverfront, and providing comprehensive planning for this corridor." That's the exact wording from the resolution. So our two positions supporting that resolution are the city should retain control through ownership of the riverfront land from the north side of the BNSF Railroad right-of-way all the way to the waterfront. So the city should retain ownership of that. And the second position, we only have two, but the second position is that the city should require and ensure that comprehensive planning for the entire Spokane River corridor from Riverstone to Hooter take place prior to any development. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
Hi, my name is Chet Gady. I live out in Mill River, and I am also a friend of the Spokane River Corridor. And I want to thank you and the city for how this is all moving along. We're excited and happy, but that doesn't mean we don't have some cautions. So I'm here today, and I'd like to speak about six different kinds of time. as you go forward with this process. We have the city's time, and the city is going to be here forever, okay? So when I think of where is the city going to be, it's forever. And that's a pretty big chunk of time. The next piece of time that we deal with is development time. And we don't know quite what that is, but if you look at your organization, you seem to think it's about 20 years. You create these districts for 20-year spans because it takes 20 years to figure out what you could do, how to generate revenue to do it, to find the people to do it. So that's about a 20-year block of time. Then we have political time. And again, it's hard to determine that. Some people stay in office forever. Some people stay in office just a blink of time. But normally we would think of that as 4-year blocks. Okay, so that's 3 kinds of time. And then we have money time. And money seems to run in a yearly cycle. So that seems to be a 1-year time. You're going to be working on budget resolutions concerning 1 year. And that's how we talk about that. So our concerns that we're pointing out is that this, as Roger mentioned, is a once and forever opportunity, this Spokane River Corridor Atlas Mill site. You all know what we're talking about. And it's a once and forever opportunity, and it should be dealt with in forever time, not these other segments of time. So let me give you an example of how when we start thinking, and I know there are requirements to think in these other segments of time, but how maybe we lose track of the forever. So at your last meeting, you had some pictures up here of the site, and someone said we have to build a road, and a line was drawn across the map, and that was at a budgeting meeting, I guess. So that was really driven by a money period of time. You get encouragement, criticism from the city about what is your long-term plan? Do you need all your money? Can we have some of your money? That is a political segment of time. That's all affecting this property, okay? You have, probably today, you'll be talking about some of this development time, which is different in your Lake District, your River District, and hopefully your new Atlas District. So that's a different thing. But in the end, we're talking forever time. And so every plan that I've looked at that looks at this shorefront property says the city should be running a multi-use trail along the shorefront. The city should have that property. That's forever. And I think I would encourage you, as you make these decisions based on money time, political time, development time, please don't lose track of the forever time. There's one other type of time, and that's decision time. So when do we make these decisions? And as Roger pointed out, our position that strip along the shore should be public. We think the decision time to make that will be when the city considers the annexation agreement, and they should put a condition of annexation that the shoreline will remain in the city. The city will retain ownership of that. And we think that's doable. We think it's legal. We think, of course, would have to put a bunch of specific words on it. We think if the city adopts that position, that helps everyone else that's planning to do wonderful things for this property to remember the forever time. So when you're budgeting for a year, you say, oh man, we're going to budget for a year, but we can't count that shoreline because the city's going to keep that. When you're sitting at city council, you said, we've got that, now we have to budget for the shoreline and maybe be in the parks or maybe work with Ignite. But I think by keeping that in the city's ownership, that helps the forever time be clear as you make all these other decisions. So there's some sort of philosophical thing. I'm not looking for a fight or an argument, but please think about the long-term stuff as you go. And when you draw a line on the map, you go, wow, look at that. That would be a great line. Maybe not. Maybe the developer doesn't want that line there that you're drawing in money time for your budget. Maybe he wants to slant all the roads 45 degrees so that he can maintain view sheds of the river and increase the value of that property. So please just think long-term, don't think of us as picking a fight, because, you know, we all basically want the same thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
Those are our position papers. I just got them.
Okay. I'll entertain some action then for approval of the minutes from our last board meeting, please.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the July 19, 2017 Ignite Board meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks. Now we'll get into our first resolution to fiscal year 2017 Lake District Budget Amendment Hearing. Resolution 17-05, adoption of Lake District fiscal year 2017 budget amendment. Get that up on the board there, and then we'll see if there's a public hearing for that.
Just a quick overview, Mr. Chairman, and nothing's changed from this since the board looked at this at the June board meeting and the July board meeting. It's just amending the Lake District FY17 budget to reflect changes that we witnessed this year and to make sure that these budget categories are reflecting board decisions carried out through this fiscal year.
Any public comment or hearing on that? On this resolution, 17-05?
Mr. Chair, hearing no public comment, I move that we approve fiscal year 2017 Lake District Budget Amendment Resolution 17-05.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call.
Sorry, roll call.
Goodlander?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Chapkus?
Yes.
Arman?
Yes.
Thank you. Fiscal year 2018 budget hearing. Resolution 17-06, adoption of Ignite CDA fiscal year 2018 budget. Now is the time to open for public hearing on the fiscal year 2018 budget.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, nothing has changed on this budget since the board saw it in July. It's the same values.
Mr. Chair, seeing that there's no public comment, I would move that we approve the fiscal year 2018 budget Resolution 17-06.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Roll call.
Need another roll call.
testing you?
Thank you for that. Goodlander?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yep.
Chapkus?
Yes.
Arman?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda will be the Finance Committee report from Commissioner Arman.
Well, the Finance Committee Finance report this month is fairly long because it is July, or was July, and July is always a very busy month. So to start out with the Lake District balance sheet, the Lake District experienced a $275,703 increase in cash assets from the June month in, primarily due to the large increment check we received from the county in July for taxes paid in June. There were no major receivables. Other assets, the Lake District 2016 Series Note Reserve Account earned $27 in July. Amounts to be provided from the tax increment line for the DDA and IRA debt obligation payments were the ice plant IRA showed a decrease of $25,582. The Chamber DDA had a decrease of $922, and the 609 Sherman Lofts IRA had a decrease of $8,312. Liabilities and fund balance for the Lake District. Mortgages and notes payable line item showed a decrease of $862,911 for July, which represents a standard month of debt service, $600 plus $6,001 plus a semi-annual principal payment of $856,910. Tax increment payables line item, the DDA and the IRA debt obligation payments reflect the same values as reported under other assets. And all other liability parameters either unchanged or normal for the month, including the 2% credit to the due to arts line item due due to the county increment check received in July. The Lake District P&L, the Lake District received $1,378,065 in tax increment revenue from the county in July. Taxes and increment payments line item value was $34,816, which reflects the total principal payments for the Ice Plant IRA, the Chamber DDA, and the 609 Sherman Lofts IRA. Professional fees line item value includes payments to Welsh Comer for $42,840 for the Memorial Park project, and to Miller Stoffer for $67,478 for the parking facility project work. Repair and maintenance line item value was $15,742 is for the Midtown Green Space Initiative. The debt service interest expense line item reflects the following payments. The Washington Trust Bank 2016 note interest paid $50,292. The 609 Sherman Lofts IRA interest paid $5,718. And other debt obligations were $1,305. All other P&L expenditure line items was normal for the operating month. Now for the River District. The assets in the River District experienced an $89,700 decrease in cash assets from June month, due primarily to the payments on the Celtics Way revitalization project and the semi-annual debt obligation payments. Other assets amounts to be provided from tax increment line item OPA's IRA debt obligation principal payments were as follows. Riverstone West Apartments 3 IRA had a decrease of $1,348. Riverstone West Phase 1 OPA, a decrease of $149,744. Riverstone West Phase 2 IRA, decrease of $19,973. Mill River Seniors IRA was a decrease of $81. Other IRA values were unchanged or interest only payments. The liabilities and fund balance, tax increment payable line item, OPA and IRA debt obligation payments reflect the same values as what I just reported under other assets. All other liability parameters were either unchanged or normal for the month. The River District P&L, the River District received $407,882 in tax increment revenue from the county in July. The agency-funded programs line item reflects the $269,348 payment made to the Celtics Way project in June. The taxes and increment payments in line item value of $171,147 reflects the total principal payments for the Riverstone West Apartments 3 IRA, the Riverstone West Phase 1 OPA, the Riverstone West Phase 2 IRA, and the Mill River Seniors IRA. The debt service and interest expense line item value of $42,381 reflects the following interest payments. Riverstone West Phase 2 IRA interest paid $19,525. Mill River Seniors IRA interest paid $6,472. Riverstone West Apartments IRA interest paid $7,025. Riverstone West Apartments 3 IRA interest paid $2,806. And the Circuit at Celtics Way IRA interest paid of $6,553. All other P&L expenditure items were pretty much normal for the month. So that wraps up the balance sheet and the P&L for both the lakes and the river districts. As far as payables go, the payables for July, and there were quite a bit, as we can ramp up the summer. Starting off, we had a $6,040.10 payment to Elam and Burke for legal expenses. Secondly, we had a $6,844 payment to Holly and Troxel for legal expenses. A good portion of both of these was for the Atlas Mill site, or the expansion of the sites. The next payment was for CDF Landscape, $7,408, which was for the Midtown Green Space Initiative, which if you've driven by there, looks beautiful.
And that's the final payment.
Yeah, and it's really, that was a great payment, or a great investment. The next payment was for the Atlas Mill Site Initiative, $12,150. There was a total of $24,000 on this one. This is the first payment to Welsh Comer Engineers. The next payment was to for Welsh Comer Engineers also. Final payment of $17,760 for the North Park Drive Exchange Project. And that's been finalized now. The next payment was for $572,240.05. For Welsh Comer Engineers was $118,400, and for the contractor T. Riviere Equipment and Excavation, $453 $453,840.05 for the total of $572,240.05 for the Southeast Way Road Revitalization Project. The next payment was for the downtown parking structure project. Miller Stauffer Design, $40,216.30. And then the Miller Stauffer Design Team for reimbursable expenses, $11,533.70 for a total of $51,750 for the downtown parking project. And last but not least, Four Corner Project Memorial Park Element, Welch Comer Construction and Staking Services, $14,970. And the contractor construction and park materials, $51,163.47 for a total of $66,133.47. All total for the July payables, $740,325.62.
Mouthful.
That's a lot. Any comments? Questions?
Questions, or I'll entertain board action?
Well, you do a great job with that.
And we can approve those together, I always forget. We can approve the financials. So I make a motion to approve the monthly financials and the payables as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good job. One other item for you, looks like.
That's true, we do have one other item. So every year, we have an audit of the financials for the, for Ignite CDA. And last year, we had Magnus and McHugh do the audit. And there's been some change at Magnus and McHugh, and we kind of, as Finance Committee, thought it might be time to reopen an RFP to just check and see if, with the changes that Magnuson's had, if we should reopen it, have another bid come back in, and see if we could maybe get a different price, or maybe it might be a better price, or even same firm. So that was the kind of a discussion at Finance to look at possibly having an RFP for audit. So any comments or questions?
How long has Magnus and McHugh been the auditor for Ignite?
Quite long.
For many, many years.
Yeah.
I strongly suggest we go out for RFP just for the pure reason that it's just really not a fiscally sound idea to continue to have the same auditor for too long. It makes good public management sense to at least consider and evaluate other firms.
When's the last time we went out to RFP for this?
We went out a year ago.
Last year.
Yeah.
So it's-
But there has been a number of changes there, and the auditor that did our audit last year is no longer with them.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the request then is just to go out for proposal.
Correct.
That's,
I just need a motion to that.
yeah, so I'd make a motion to take out for proposal the fiscal year 2017 audit.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Motion carries. Next on the list is Commissioner Jordan. Talk about parking.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, as far as the City Parking Commission, don't have a whole lot to report. The vehicle with a license plate reader came in, and they've been using that for the last several weeks and kind of perfecting the system and so forth on that. I think our next Parking Commission meeting's in September, as I recall. Then on the steering team meeting for the parking structure, have some activity there. We have a parking committee meeting coming up sometime next week. And they expect to turn in the application for the permit, for the building permit next week. And hopefully not too long after Labor Day, go out for bids. And September will be the last month that there'll be public parking in the city lot on Coeur d'Alene Avenue. Everybody's been notified about that, and then that'll be closed down October 1st. And Tony's working on some bids for demolition of the buildings on the west end of the site there. And I think we have 2 bidders on that. And let's see, hopefully we should have a contractor selected by early part of October.
Everything's still
Things are
on
moving
track.
along. I think we're staying on track.
Mr. Chairman, Brad, I'm thinking that all of the people that will be displaced out of that Coeur d'Alene Avenue parking, has there been some discussion as to where those people are would relocate to? I know that Diamond controls a private parking lot that's there off of Third Street by what used to be the US Bank a while ago.
Are they being provided with
Yeah,
any
I-
Well,
instructions or alternatives?
They're trying to move them around, yeah. And then Sam might have a couple things to elaborate, unfortunately for me.
Sam Taylor, Deputy City Administrator, thank you. Yes, Your Honor, we are moving folks around. Diamond has been working with folks at, both locally as well as the folks who just purchase online that never actually speak to Diamond locally. So we've been working to coordinate moving them to other lots to accommodate them. And as always, the Downtown Association has been a great partner in helping assist with some of the communication to those folks as well. So they all will be moved to other locations and their permits will be valid.
I'm sure there's been some conversation too with the county. I know when there is jury selection there, there's, that parking lot is full as well as the other one is full. So we'll maybe have to have a conversation with the county on those dates where we give instructions for the potential jurors to park, since it's going to be reduced there for a little bit.
We will work on that. Yes, sir.
Good idea.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sam.
Sam.
Okay, thanks, Sam. I think that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Brad. Next is the Executive Director's report.
I have quite a few items to share with the board tonight. First off is we'll talk about, can never see this thing. Where is it at? The little icon is not there. Okay. Still can't see it. I have to reverse. So what we need to do this evening is kind of just update you on our planning process for the River District expansion and the formation of the new Atlas District. Just to remind everybody about kind of how we got here, back in May in 2017, the Ignite CDA Board approved the Atlas Mill Site Eligibility Report prepared by Panhandle Area Council and forwarded that report on to City Council for their review. Also in May 2017, Ignite CDA and City Council held a workshop where City Council gave the Ignite CDA Board approval to proceed with plans to, one, expand the existing River District by the allowable 10% of the geographic area, and two, to create a new district, now referred to as the Atlas District, to encompass the remaining acreage of the Atlas Mill Site. So this is the Atlas Mill Site that we're talking about. And I'll show you another slide here in a second about how the districts are proposed. And this is Mount Hink, which I'll come back and refer to again. Mount Hink is that large pile of organic mixed material that's located out on that mill site. Also in May, an Atlas Mill Site Acquisition Steering Committee was formed to help guide the acquisition due diligence process. This committee is comprised of the following individuals from the city of Coeur d'Alene. We have Mayor Widmeyer, Councilperson Gookin, Councilpersons Evans, City Administrator Hammond, Deputy City Administrator Taylor, City Attorney Gridley, City Finance Director Tymason, City Planning Director Anderson. From Ignite CDA, we have Chairman Hoskins, Commissioner Arman, Legal Counsel Quaid, and myself, and Phil Boyd from West Comer is facilitator of this fine committee. So what I'm going to do now is kind of give you an overview of the elements of the draft expanded River District Plan. So in the green there, you see the proposed area of expansion for the River District. Once again, this is a conceptual idea. This is not set in stone at this time. As we all understand, the Ignite CDA needs to form these plans for City Council review this fall for the expanded River District and the new Atlas District. So we have to come up with ideation of how these districts might make sense. As I mentioned earlier, the expansion of the river district is limited to 10% of the current area, which is about 299 acres, so that's why you see the 29-acre expansion amount. So the expanded river district redevelopment plan changes this boundary that you see on the screen there. It de-annexes a portion of the right-of-way south of Celtice Way, which will be vacated by the city of Coeur d'Alene, hopefully, totaling approximately 1.8 acres and adding approximately 29 acres of the former lumber mill site to the project area. So what we're proposing is that the city vacate this wide right-of-way along Celtice Way and include that in our urban renewal district. It doesn't sound like a lot, it's 1.8 acres, but it equates to quite a bit of money on a square footage basis if we can go ahead and develop that, and it comes in around $800,000. So that's why we're going to ask the board and city council to consider this small vacation of right-of-way and de-annexing it from the river district and including it in these the new districts. The overall purposes of these modifications to the plan are to remediate a deteriorating area, to remove impediments to development, and to create the framework within the project area for the potential development of the following uses, and I'll stress potential: mixed use, residential, commercial, waterfront commercial, retail areas, cultural centers, medical facilities, educational facilities, multi-purpose athletic facilities, other public facilities and improvements, including but not limited to streets, streetscapes, water and sewer improvements, parking, community facilities, a public park, pedestrian bike paths, and trails and riverfront access points and docks. Once again, I stress potential, but we are looking at all those possibilities down the road. The de-annexation and annexation are accomplished by amending this current river district plan. Amending the plan does not extend the duration of the river district, which will terminate on December 31st, 2027, with revenues generated in 2027 payable in 2028. Since the plan was originally adopted pre-July 2016, the second amendment to this plan does not result in a reset of the base assessment roll values to the current values for the existing river district revenue allocation area. So as you recall, the legislature changed kind of the rules on this last year. So if you change these plans that were established beyond 2016, there's a reset of the base value, which really affects your increment generation potential. This action here does not trigger that new Idaho code section. Did I say that well enough, Danielle?
Right, because this plan was adopted before 2016. It's not subject to that base reset.
So we talked about the expansion by 10%, and finally the combined base assessment rolls of the existing and proposed revenue allocation areas, including the proposed additional area, cannot exceed 10% of the current assessed valuation of all taxable property within the city. So once again, there's an Idaho code section that says that all your urban renewal districts can't exceed 10% of the current city's valuation. The base rolls values can't. So we've done the math, and the existing Lake District, the existing River District, the expanded River District, and the new Atlas District all fall below that 10% metric. So we're okay from that Idaho standard on that point. So that's the kind of a summary of the River District expansion. The Atlas District expansion you see is in blue here. This down here is a Lake District. That's the current Lake District, which is not in any of the conversation tonight. It's just depicted there for clarity. This is the new Atlas District. This is the east section of it. This is the west section of it. You see that it encompasses the old Washington Trust piece out here that is owned by Lance Douglas out of Spokane. And it also includes his little over 3-acre piece right here that's owned by Lance Douglas. So for the Atlas District plan.
Tony, could you go back to the slide previous to that?
The one prior to?
No, the one that shows the western side there.
Yep.
So that goes to Hutter District?
That goes to our other end of our river district. So this is U.S. Bank Service Center.
Okay.
Right there. This, remember, that has been de-annexed, so the area in yellow is still in the river district. Okay. Okay. So I'll kind of go through this plan also. I mean, it's got a lot of the same components as the expanded river district, but the Atlas District Plan proposes a new revenue allocation area including approximately 53 acres located south of Celtice Way and to the west of the area to be added to the river district. Similar to the expanded river district plan, the overall purposes of the Atlas District Plan are to remediate a deteriorating area, to remove impediments to development, and to create the framework within the project area for potential development of the following uses: mixed-use, residential, commercial, waterfront commercial, retail areas, cultural centers, medical facilities, education facilities, multipurpose athletic facilities, other public facilities and improvements, including but not limited to streets, streetscapes, water and sewer improvements, parking, community facilities, parkland, pedestrian bike paths and trails, and riverfront access points and docks. The Atlas District Plan has a duration of 20 years with a termination date of December 31st, 2037, with revenues generated in 2037 payable in 2038. As this is a post-July 26 revenue allocation district, any modification to the Atlas District Plan by City Council ordinance results in a resetting of the base assessment roll values of the year that happened. So this would, if this district is formed by City Council later this year, and a couple years down the road, if there's any changes made to it, that would potentially trigger a reset of the base. There's like three possible exclusions of how that could happen, but they're pretty minor. So this is something that would be changeable, and that would definitely affect the increment stream if there were any modifications. Now, Danielle, a de-annexation does not trigger a base reset, correct?
Right.
So the City Council, if this district does great in 5 or 10 years and they don't want to go the full 20 years, they can de-annex part of it and it would not force a base reset. Or they could close it down early if all the debt obligations are satisfied. But that's just a uniqueness to these new districts when they're formed, is they have to make meet that new Idaho Code standard. So the last part of these plans require economic forecast models. Well, this is another slide that kind of gives you context of where the district expansion and the new district kind of fit into the larger world. So, like I mentioned, in order for us to develop these plans at this time, we have to kind of come up with an idea of how this property may develop. Once again, this is a conceptual idea of how this area might develop into different land uses. So you see on the screen, the green is potential parkland, which would go down into the existing Lake District because part of the Atlas Mill site, the Bad Axe property, extends into the Lake District. The green space is all public space. This light shaded area is residential, single-family residential that goes above and below the road. And the purple spaces are commercial properties designated as a C-17 zoning. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the initial thinking would be to potentially how this property may develop. And we all recognize as we're going through this process that there will be some master planning done beyond this time frame, which might change some of those land uses. But for our planning purposes at this time, we have to come up with some idea about how this project, for lack of a better term, will pencil. Because, as you know, the City Council is going to spend $8 million for this acquisition. They would like to get repaid for that. They'd also like to get repaid for the money they have invested in the railroad right-of-way acquisition, which is about $1 million. Plus, we have to build roads, we have to build sewer, water, infrastructure, we have to build public space, we have to do all these things. So we have to show at this time, at this early time, that we can come up with a land use design that will generate the revenues needed to meet all those demands. And so that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
One thing to emphasize is conceptual, all capitals. Those roads and stuff where they are, there's logic where they're there, but they don't have to be there. We have to come up with a plan to get the district approved, so.
And this can be changed and amended all over, and that doesn't trigger the reset. That's a whole.
No, we're just in the planning process right now. So the plan of attack here is that we wanted to kind of share with you where we are, and we are as the global we as Danielle, myself, and our legal counsel in Boise, as well as the steering committee, are kind of working through this. we still have a lot of work to do, and we will bring back this, these plans and this concept to you at the September board meeting in more of a finalized form. At that time, we would seek board agreement and approval to forward this on to city council for their planning process, where it has to go through planning and zoning and through city council, with our intent of having these plans formalized in December, so that we can have a base established here of January 2017 for the expanded River District and the new Atlas District. So that's a game plan. So this is your first look at these plans. I've sent the plans to you. I know they're lengthy, but that's the beauty of these plans, is that they're long. And just want to kind of share with you these initial concepts of district boundaries and potential land uses. This might change a bit by the time you see it in September again, because we're still working through some cost issues. And that's why I wanted to kind of bring up the magical Mount Hink again. This is an interesting spot. I mean, you've all seen it out there. It's a treasure trove of all kinds of possibilities and scary things. So we're still working through what all that means economically, what are the potential remediation costs, what can be used on site, what might not be able to. And that's a big factor in kind of making or shaping our plans about how all this works from an economic revenue standpoint. I've talked a lot. Is there any questions at this time? Once again, you'll see this again, and you'll have more time to get into the details of it, but just kind of the first look.
Good start.
Mr. Chairman, a really important question here is that where did Hink come from?
I might call on a gentleman in the audience. Mr. Phil Boyd might have an answer, or he'll make one up. And he doesn't know. He's shaking his head. I was told a long time ago it was a gentleman that worked there.
Okay.
There was a gentleman named Henry Hink that was one of the executives with Idaho Forest Industries. So does it have something to do with him possibly?
It's been referred to that Mount Hinks for over a decade, so I have no idea. I'm sure he doesn't want to own it.
Nobody wants to own it.
Is he liable for it?
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions along that, I guess along that agenda item, I'd like to ask the board to consider the agency engaging Kushlon Consulting to help with the third-party review of the financial forecasting models when they're developed. Phil Kushlon is a past executive director of Boise's Capital City Development Corporation, which is Boise's urban renewal agency. Phil possesses decades of experience in urban renewal plan development and financial forecasting. And I share with you his proposed contract. He proposes a fee of not to exceed $5,000 for his third-party review of our process. So I'd like the board to consider that, and if agreeable, to give me the authorization to go ahead and engage Kushlon Associates for this project.
In the past, this is the first time we've used Kushlon.
Yes.
Are they a fairly new firm? Before, we've used a Boise attorney.
We still use Boise attorney Ryan Armbruster is helping with drafting the plans, but this is for a third-party review of our economic modeling element of this project. So he's not going to be developing or writing out the plans. He's just going to be looking at the models once they're developed to see if they make sense, if he sees anything we're missing from an economic development standpoint.
It's primarily from an economic development standpoint. It's not necessary to the plan.
No, but it's highly recommended, because we've been working on it. Danielle and myself been working on it with Phil. We're very, we have a few set of eyes on this, but it's always wise if you have the ability to bring somebody in that is fresh, to look at the site and to look at all our assumptions and our variables that we're looking as we model these development over the next 10 and 20 years, to make sure we're not missing anything. That would be the reason.
I would add that it's been done in the past too, with your prior plans. You had
Kaiser Marston.
Kaiser Marston actually develop the economic feasibility studies, right? But at this point, Tony has used that as a base to develop the feasibility study, but having someone come in and due diligence and make sure that they feel like what we've come up with is reasonable, I think is pretty valuable.
The total budget is $5,000. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the hiring of Kushlon Consulting and allow Tony to sign the contract to hire them for consulting services.
Second?
Moved and seconded, and that will state not to exceed
5,000.
5,000.
That's in the contract.
Quick question, just for clarification, this is a whole separate situation than, say, along the road here, we decide to do some long-term visioning and master planning of this project and bring in some professional consultants to do big-time
Absolutely.
master
This is
planning.
way before any of that.
Right.
As I shared, right now, we have to come up with these urban renewal plans and these models so city council can approve it with the expectation and understanding that there'll be further input down the road.
There'll probably be a lot of changes to those projected land uses on the map, but that's okay, we have to start somewhere.
Okay. Any other further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, or anybody opposed? Thanks, motion carries.
Next item I have, Mr. Chairman, is a surplus property discussion, railroad right-of-way located east of Beebe Boulevard. So this is a picture of the area that we'll be talking about. This is abandoned right-of-way, railroad right-of-way, east of Beebe Boulevard. Beebe Boulevard is right back here. This is the Hampton Inn. So our stretch, and I'll show you another slide in a minute, but our stretch of right-of-way kind of runs to here, and then it's bounded by all kinds of Union Pacific right-of-way that kind of goes along here. So that's abandoned Union Pacific right-of-way that is for sale at this time. And then right about here is where the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad property is controlled by the Bureau of Land Management in the area that the city may lease. And the Centennial Trail is right there. So moving down one slide. So here is graphically depicted a little bit better. So the area in pink is Ignite CDA-owned abandoned railroad right-of-way. The area in yellow is the Union Pacific property that is currently for sale. And the area in blue is the area controlled by the Bureau of Land Management that will be actually controlled by the city of Coeur d'Alene through their long-term lease with the federal government. And finally, this is a depiction of the Centennial Trail. It runs just to the south of our property, which is outlined in the blue line there. So, with that said, my notes up here. So I would like to have the conversation with the board about declaring the area in pink surplus property. Once again, this is property that we acquired from Burlington Northern Santa Fe in a larger deal that stretched from this end all the way out to the Mill River development, through the Mill River development. The section that you see here in red is currently creating zero value for the agency. An appraisal was performed on this portion of the agency-owned railroad right-of-way in March of 2017. The value of the agency-owned property depicted in red, as is, was appraised at $320,000. The value of the agency-owned property combined with the adjacent UP property was appraised at $600,000. So if you combine these two pieces of property, which are each 60 feet wide, our property becomes worth $600,000 as appraised value. The agency is aware that a local developer is pursuing acquisition of the UP property. So there is a developer that is pursuing acquisitions of this entire yellow area. Past environmental due diligence efforts on the agency-owned property identify potential issues associated with the surface area of the railroad right-of-way. So if the board should choose to sell this right-of-way property, a proactive course of action prior to sale would be to remove, transport, and incorporate this surface area material into the agency's Southeast Way revitalization project. So we know we got about a foot of surface material on that red area that has been identified as troublesome for residential development and basically for any type of use. So the site would have to be remediated for sale. And currently, we have an opportunity to take that material out to the Southeast Way project and use it as fill, because they need fill out there. And in order to handle it correctly, you would have to bury it to a certain depth, which we are aware of. And Welch Comer, who's helping us rationalize this endeavor, has chatted with DEQ, and we think we can put together a chain of custody that would take that material and bury it in the Southeast Way project, satisfying all environmental conditions. So the cost of doing this is estimated to, at a high end, a conservative value, about $95,000. However, the Southeast Way project needs to spend about $50,000 for fill. So actually, if you net that out, then the remediation cost would be about $45,000 to the agency, since the project needs $50,000 of additional fill. So that kind of paints the picture for you there. Phil, do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Just kind of looking for discussion direction from the board about how you'd like to proceed. Yes, Dan.
So the Union Pacific right-of-way, this now allows development of that property into residential. If we do that, and where would a road go?
Well, if we put this up, if we put the red area up for sale, and the developer who's trying to buy the Union Pacific buys it and combines it with his successful acquisition of the UP right-of-way, you would have 120 feet of developable property. And so the road theoretically would go up here on the northern end of the UP right-of-way. That would service most likely residential development along here.
Would that also service the residential development on the further piece?
Which further piece, down here? Or,
I mean, I'm just curious. So the road goes behind, or on the Union Pacific?
A potential new road would go on the north end of the yellow here.
Okay.
It would come off Beebe Boulevard.
So without this property, it's not, our property is not developable, but with our property, it is developable into residential.
Yes. And our
So,
property.
and that's where the difference in price from 220 to 600.
And our property by itself isn't really developable. So logically, these two pieces should be together in some form or fashion. You know, we own a piece and Union Pacific owns the other piece, and maybe a developer in town will buy that and then potentially join them. So if we put ours up for sale, that might give the opportunity for the developer to make that happen and then create value for the community out of something that's creating zero value for the community right now.
So the question is whether or not we want to put it up for sale.
Yes. Declared surplus, and then we would start a process for putting it out for bid. And the process would be for sealed bids to occur for that property, and they would be opened at a future board meeting.
Meanwhile, we really need to do something about the topsoil.
If we want to sell it, right. I mean, if we leave it as is, we can just kind of leave it, but if we ever want to develop that or do anything with that property, it has to be remediated.
If we sold it, would we have to pay for the remediation, though? Or we sell it as is?
If you sell it as is, you probably would just have to set the price lower that you would accept, understanding and knowing that you'd have to be remediated. But the challenge of that is that our Southeast Way project needs fill. So if
And
we
your
are
cost,
gonna,
you would only be about a $45,000, $50,000 difference.
and that's on the high end that
Yeah.
we believe, so it hopefully will be less than that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Tony, so we had a range of prices there. What would you suggest to set if we declare it surplus, you set it out to sealed bid, what would we set our minimum bid at?
Well, one rationale would be that if you declare it surplus and spend the time and efforts to clean it up, then you probably would go to what it appraised at and set that as
So would that be the 300 or the 600?
600. Or anything less than that, or, I mean, that's just the appraised price that kind of gives you the idea of what it should be on the open market. Yes.
So are we really talking about two things? An opportunity right now to remediate it fairly reasonably, and the other would be to put it up for sale. Knowing how long it takes us to get something like that done, the remediation should really come first, and we should make a decision on that right away. Is that what you're saying?
That would be a suggestion, yes.
That makes sense.
Tony, going back to your answer to Steve, I don't think we could put it up for 600,000. It wouldn't appraise at 600,000. Our portion alone wouldn't.
Our portion did. So
I thought it was our portion combined with the UP
sounded like
property
the two,
would.
but-
Right, so, logically, our property isn't worth anything by itself. I mean, no one's gonna buy it
Correct.
as is. So the logical buyer would be whoever buys a Union Pacific piece. So that's why it's worth so much more to that buyer. I mean, you can set it lower, but the appraisal said that if it's combined with that Union Pacific piece, it's worth 600,000.
I just think we have to be reasonable, and, I mean, it doesn't serve us any good at all. It's a piece of property that's surplus, that is valueless for us at this point in time. It's knapweeded there.
Well, it's worth 300,000, so it's
Well,
not
it's
valueless.
it's not valueless, but it's not, it was not developable at this point in time. If we're able to remediate that and take the topsoil off of that, or the upper foot or whatever, use it for our project, that's value to us. But as it is, just a piece of property, this non-developable is gonna be there like that for a long time. I think we should try to make it so that we can combine it with the purchaser in a reasonable way so that it makes sense for them too. I mean, I don't think we should try to shoot for top dollar personally. That's just my opinion.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with Mick too. If, I would set it at a minimum of 300 once we have it remediated, which was the appraised price that they gave.
Right.
So, these appraised prices, it was 325?
Yep.
320?
320.
And that says it sits with contamination, or that's clean?
That was before any due diligence issues were identified, so.
Right. And we don't have a second appraisal for 600, you're just saying the assemblage value would be 600
Well,
with
the
you.
appraiser that did this gave the assemblage value.
He says the assemblage value would be worth 600 for assemblage value if
Right.
we had the right person. But my other question was, and I think we should excavate the contaminated soil out of it, because we can do it way cheaper than anyone else can and add value to the property. But, so if we excavate it down a foot, what does that do with the elevation of the property? Do we have a strip of land that's cut down a foot below grade of everything else, or what happens with the grade of that piece of land that we own?
I might have asked Phil to,
Is the railroad right of way up here, and then we're sitting a foot lower, so we have an elevation challenge, or what does it look like?
Good question, Commissioner Jordan. It would look as you described it. The topography of that site, actually, the railroad part that you see there in rock, that's one elevation, and then as you move north, it steps up a couple of feet. And so we would probably go in there, once you strip the topsoil, pull out the foot, and you would still end up with 1 foot lower on the gravel, 1 foot lower on the higher side of it. Once you've accomplished that, and apparently, and we would confirm this with DEQ, we've achieved the magic removal of the, whatever Tony called it, the questionable material. At that point, we might just blade it, so you don't have that hump anymore, but it would be lower than the two adjoining pieces of property. And I anticipate the UP property, not anticipate, I know, the UP property is subject to the same criteria. So that material would probably also have to be removed or placed underneath the road.
So that buyer has to remediate it too.
There's multiple ways to do it,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Are we, by cutting the property down, are we taking enough value away from it, or any significant value away from it by making the purchaser of, say, the UP and then this property have to bring fill in to build it back up? Or since that topography is going uphill, can he scrape enough off that by the time he takes contaminated soil out and levels everything, he winds up with a usable piece of ground and it all works out?
I think it's the latter scenario.
All right.
Phil, can you also share the number I didn't give them, the tipping fee, if we were to take this to?
That's a good point. There's a couple of ways to deal with this, and this, as Tony indicated, it's pretty early in the process. This came along pretty quickly. And we have an environmental consultant that's prepared to head down the path, and so we've got a little advice and input from him. The thing we did do to try to bracket the solutions, the low end is the one that Tony described to you. The high end of it is in the $300,000 range to remediate the site, because to remediate it and haul it to the Graham Road site, which is where a lot of contaminated soil goes, by the time you pay the tipping fees and the haul cost, it's close to $100 a yard to move that material, the 3,000 yards of material that's there. So that obviously isn't a good solution. And the solution is to figure out how to move it cost effectively here. And coincidentally, the Southeast Way project needs fill material.
Deanna?
Sure.
Is there a short time frame to make a decision on the remediation part?
The timeframe's really driven by the need of Southeast Way to have the fill material.
So we really are on a short time clock for
Yes, ma'am.
that, to make that decision. Is that something we should be talking about today, or
We are talking about it today, yeah.
to make that decision to do the remediation? Because it
Yes.
only makes sense to do it right now.
Phil, does how much fill does the Southeast project need?
There's, at this point, as you guys know, we worked the deal on the Memorial Project to borrow material from there and hauled it there. They're still about 4,000 yards short. And so through combinations of, if this material would generate somewhere in the nature of 3,000 yards, depending on how much inorganics we have to strip from the top. If you guys have been out there, the part that I'm really like is the ballast rock that's on the left there that you see that's gray. That's really great material. The stuff to the north has a fair amount of organics on it, and it's a little bit, I'm not certain what's underneath that. So 3,000 on the high side, potentially something lower than that. We would still haul it all away. We can find places to put the organics on the Southeast side and still cap them. And
That's us close.
yeah. And we're working on some redesign stuff. Matt Gillis's team is working on figuring out how can we redesign the road to, or the path to minimize how much import material we need. But the Mount Hink is the part that the remnants of that are still rearing its head, that are in the right-of-way, interestingly. Not sure how private bark material got in the city's right-of-way, but stuff happens.
No question, Phil. I know the BLM land has got plans in the future for parks and different things. Should there be some remediation as an opportunity right here to take some of that out of there, or you don't need to do that for parks and things?
Well, it depends. It depends. And some of it has to do with the frequency that people are there. Obviously, when it's in your home, there's all these threshold conditions for how long are people being exposed to the material. Is it an infrequent basis? I would anticipate from a city standpoint, and I appreciate Mr. Getty's comments about the forever viewpoint. From a forever viewpoint, you would probably want to remediate the BLM property. But in a situation like that, with a site that big, you might be able to take it all, scrape the topsoil off, bury it on one part of the site, and then take the other material and put it under the parking lot. And then you put the parking lot on top of it, and now you've captured it and remediated on site and people can't get to it. So there's more flexibility in the BLM parcel because there's so much area to work with there.
Thanks.
Welcome.
So there's several options for the board tonight. I mean, the board can kind of give direction to go ahead and look to remediate the site and to declare it surplus, and then we can start working on the process to bring it back and have the board set a minimum price for the sealed bid process, if that's what the board would desire, or theoretically, the board could set a minimum price today and direct us to go ahead and clean the site up. So what's the pleasure of the board?
The last
I
appraisal
would-
was in March. Have land values increased that much? And should we appraise it again then with the knowledge of that it's remediated?
I think land values popped up and then they've kind of leveled. So I don't know where that sits, it depends how the comps are he's using.
As I agreed, getting it into making it a developable, adding it with the other piece and making it developable would be great to do something there because it is.
You can always update that appraisal and that costs less than bringing a new appraiser in.
I would make a motion that we go forward with the remediation of the site and then continue looking at the other part of the proposal.
So go forward with the remediate, would you declare not declare the property surplus? Or declare it surplus?
I don't have a problem declaring it surplus.
So that should be part of the motion.
Remediate the site and
Part of the motion,
declare it
yeah.
surplus.
And
That would be my motion.
And wait to set any type of minimum price until a later date?
I think we should.
I think we should move on this, personally. I mean, the developer that's looking at this has got they have an offer in at this point in time.
They need to move on it.
They need to
Southeast
move
needs
on.
to-
So I would like to see us remediate for sure, because we need the fill for the Southeast project, which is under construction. I would like to declare it as surplus property.
I already said that, but I didn't
and
say,
set a price.
and set a price. I think the price really needs to be, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine. Just make the motion that way. To remediate the site and
Declare it
declare it
surplus.
surplus, and also
Set a minimum price?
set a minimum price.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I would propose 300,000.
3 or 320,
300.
whatever that price was.
320 was the
320.
number.
I'd like to set a price of 300 in my motion,
I'd second that.
Appraisal?
rather than 220, because we're gonna remediate it
It's 320.
The appraisal was at 320.
at 320. Oh, I'm sorry, I misheard.
Yeah, 320.
I thought you said 220.
It was 320,
It's 320.
I'd like to get
That's fine.
extra 20.
I would second that.
Could you read that
We'll
back?
get the motion right, yeah.
Absolutely. Get this here. So a motion by Commissioner Goodlander, seconded by Commissioner Arman, declaring the agency-owned railroad right-of-way located east of Beebe Boulevard surplus, setting a minimum sale price for the property at $320,000, and then directing the executive director to remediate the potential environmental issues as proposed. And we still don't have a firm number on that, but as we outline, kind of moving the material over to Southeast Way. And then we would work on the paperwork and the sealed bid process. That's all right?
That sounds good.
Everything okay?
Ensuring all correct paper trails for the DEQ.
Yeah, and the chain of custody.
Dirty dirt.
Yep, I got it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Nice, thanks.
Okay.
That's good. Good job.
All right, one more. Busy meeting.
Go into your backup mouse again.
So, the next item is what we're calling the land exchange proposal from the city of Coeur d'Alene for their Tilford Lane property and the agency Young Avenue property. So, just wanted to kind of give you a kind of a global view first of what we're talking about. This is, wrong mouse. This is the Tilford Lane property along BB Boulevard that we'll be talking about, and I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of how it fits into the potential interface with the Atlas Mill site. So from a global perspective, you can kind of see a hand-in-glove possibility here. So this is a proposal from the city of Coeur d'Alene that they own a 60-foot piece of right-of-way along Tilford Lane, which currently supports the Prairie Trail. Ignite CDA owns a 60-foot right-of-way from Burlington to Northern Santa Fe that is adjacent to that. So the proposal is for the city to trade their 60-foot of property to Ignite CDA for our property over on Young Avenue. And as you recall, the Young Avenue property appraised for about $960,000. And as you recall, the Tubbs Hill Foundation and the city would really like to see if that could stay in the public realm. So the city had this idea of a potential trade with the agency for these two railroad right-of-way, basically corridors, one supporting a Prairie Trail, one supporting knapweed right now, or gravel, be combined, and maybe we could develop some residential houses here to create value for the community on the tax rolls, as well as bring kind of a non-performing asset into a performing asset. You also see kind of if this was done and it would require the widening of Tilford Lane, that there could be some rationalization of the parking area at Riverstone Park, maybe expanding it, and then having this green space corridor kind of invigorated, as well as a new location for the Prairie Trail. So this is the potential relocation of the Prairie Trail. It would go right on the southern edge of our current ownership. And I think Phil gave me another slide here. So here's the existing Prairie Trail, and this is Tilford Lane. So the city's right-of-way kind of goes about here, and then our right-of-way is over here and goes down to about this tree line. So the Prairie Trail, this, is it 12 feet wide, Phil? About 12 feet, would be relocated down to the southern edge of the property, and then houses would be built on this stretch with a widened Topher Lane. I think we have a kind of a cross-section showing you how this might work. So this would be the relocated area of the Centennial Trail on the southern end of the developed area. There would be the need for some type of retaining walls to get the site level, and then houses would be built, as you saw, kind of on that first screen. Back up here, just kind of, once again, give you an overview of what we're talking about. So that's the proposal. So for tonight, we're just talking about ending the conversation at this point with the trade of the city's property along Topher Lane, ending right here with our property and combining it to maybe generate the possibility of 17 residential lots. This area of conversation, I think, is a little later. This offers possibilities for the board and the city to think about on additional funding as it goes to the west. Welch Comer has come up with a pro forma that kind of shows you how this would all work. We have 17 residential lots currently at a price of $165,000, would generate $2.8 million in revenue. Potential site development costs, power, teledata network, project review, entitlement subdivision, all these costs are estimated to run in the $1.7 million range. You can kind of see how it nets out at about $1 million. So if you look at a trade, we had our property on Young Avenue appraised and it came at about $960,000. This project is estimated would yield about $1 million. If we have site remediation issues that we just talked about on our railroad property that we just had on the other side of BB, we'll probably have the same issue there. We're probably going to have a little more cost in there, which might knock that down. Is that a fair statement, Phil? So it might become more of a push. We might be in the mid-900s when it's all said and done. But once again, these are early estimates on the cost, but it looks like a value for value proposition from the city.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
I just think that this is a great opportunity to take, again, two pieces of property, combine them together to combine value. And we just talked about it on the surplus sale deal. So it's very similar to that. And by creating this value here, we can also, and then, again, this all has to go through city council. This is the first stop for this, because if you guys said, no, we're not interested in it, couldn't go any further, right? But if this board is interested, then the land trade then comes back to city council for discussion there. But I think that they would be very interested in it, because at the end of the day, the city would have ownership of the property that's on Young Avenue, that it's at the base of Tubbs Hill, which we know that the public wants. And then this project would also enable the agency to recoup that investment through here. So I think it's
nice lots.
I think it's a pretty solid, deal.
So if, yes, sir.
Well, I was going to say, I agree. I think this is a win-win. It solves the issue we have with the Tubbs Hill property, adjacent to Tubbs Hill. I think on Memorial Field, those lots, we're doing the right thing, developing those lots. I'm not sure on this one if we shouldn't maybe put all the entitlements in place and sell this to a private developer. We just have to run the numbers and do some research on it and see how we come out the best for the amount of time we want to put into it. But I think however we do it, I think it's a win-win and solves a problem. Turns it into a real positive.
And creates value for the taxpayers.
And I
Perfect.
So if
thank the mayor for his work on this. I think that's a good situation.
So if the board is supportive of moving forward on this, the next iteration would be to kind of dig a little deeper into the costs. And I shared with you a proposal from Welch Comer to do that. Their proposal would be to take this to the next level. It's a 4-task proposal. They would, task 1 would be a topographic survey, preliminary boundary and site layout and grading, do that analysis. Task 2 would be preliminary infrastructure improvement plans. Task 3 would be to refine the opinions of cost and pro forma services. And then additional tasks would be to kind of work on other elements of this trade. So they're proposing a fee of $22,500 to basically take this trade proposal to the next level and really try to figure out how it's all going to work. Widening of Topher Lane, there's a relocation of a main sewer line. It's a 24-inch sewer line that has to be moved over into Topher Lane. So there's a lot of costs involved with this, a lot of developmental costs involved with this, but to kind of dig deeper and make sure that we're not missing anything and to bring back to the board and to the city council, really a clear idea of what it's going to cost and really get down to the net value proposition. Can we generate in the mid 900,000s or is it going to be in the low 900,000s when this is all said and done?
Question? So, we're investing this $22,000 to see if this will work, this proposal will work, before we even do the proposal, is that right? Okay.
Will that include
Just checking.
to determine if a remediation is needed? Any remediation is needed, or? We should get you a chair up there.
Good question, Mr. Chairman. The answer to that is yes. One of the tasks, as Tony mentioned, that last task, that was, it was a $7,500 hourly proposal, not $7,500 an hour, a budget of $7,500 to cover things like that. We hope that in the UP environmental work, we will be able to establish a protocol from our environmental consultant in that project that we'll be able to apply to this one as well. I'm not certain of that, so we've budgeted some time to do that. But the answer is yes, we are planning to figure out how to deal with remediation here. I think it's a little bit, we have more opportunity to bury that because if I might, Tony, go to that one. You can see in the cross-section here, if a good portion of material that may be contaminated, even if it's in this area, would be capped with a paved trail, or it would be buried deep enough that we wouldn't have to do anything with it. So hopefully we don't really have much remediation here. We obviously will need a little bit of import fill material if ultimately the project moved forward in this configuration.
All right.
I might revisit Commissioner Jordan's question. Commissioner Woodmeyer, do you think we need to take this to city council before we spend $22,000, or is it pretty clear that this is a pretty strongly supported city initiative?
I would hate to speculate on that. I think we would run this, our next meeting is the 5th of September. I guess I would feel comfortable running it by the council and getting their decision. I think that they would be in support of it, but I don't want to speak for them. I think they need to get see the plan and give them the opportunity to weigh in. And I think it's probably prudent before we start that to just get their stamp of approval that yes, that's something that we'd like to move forward with.
So the board could theoretically approve the Welch-Comer contract pending approval by the city council?
I'd make a motion in favor of doing that, subject to the approval of the concept by the city council.
I'd second that.
Any further discussion? Would the city council be more inclined to say, again, speculation, to approve it if they had that in more information that would come from the additional work?
I think that this proposal would give them enough.
As
to-
is? Okay.
Yeah, I think they're good.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Great idea. Great idea.
Yeah.
Chairman, the next item I have is just an update on North Park Drive subdivision initiative. Mr. Boyd, is there anything to share tonight that you'd like to?
Yes, I will report that I think everyone remembers the Curl encumbrance. Do you have the image up there, Tony?
On which one?
From Park Drive?
Oh, I don't have that, no.
Tennis court encumbrance.
The tennis court encumbrance. I happen to bring
Do you
it
have
with
one?
me.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Just happened.
Let me pull this up.
Just carries it around. Just carries it around.
That's right. Always got a thumb drive, yeah. Just never know.
Well, I'll back up. Everyone, just to give folks their reference. The Memorial Park, the reoriented field, Northwest Boulevard at the top of the screen, the Park Drive parcels. This is the proposed alley alignment. And the parcels in question were these two down here, 9 and 10. Those were the two that had the curl encumbrance on them. So we've been corresponding and talking with the Curl family and politely, providing them information. But at some point, we're now at the point where we're ready to construct the sewer line that goes back here to serve these parcels and to construct the water and sewer services into here. So I had communicated with their representative, whose name is Phil McWilliams, and said we're kind of at the point where we need to decide if we're going to move forward or not. And he said, send us the waiver of removing the encumbrance, and we'll take it into consideration. And that's what he said. He didn't indicate any compensation. They simply wanted a plaque to recognize his grandparents that donated that parcel for courts. And I think the mayor had indicated that the city would be glad to do that. And so we had that written into the waiver, and we're going to ship the waivers off to them. Once we get some information back to the title company that the waiver is sufficient to remove the encumbrance, which we think it is. The city attorney wrote it. So that's kind of the status report. So we intend to move forward with a 10-lot subdivision, subject to some direction from the board here.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Very good news. Well,
That is excellent.
I guess I'd motion we move forward, and if something goes wrong, we don't do those 2 lots.
The next step in the process will be, the land trade hasn't been completed. Remember, there was the swap between the Ignite property down here and the Ignite property up here and the city property in that area. And so literally we've kind of been sitting on the legal descriptions waiting for this to happen. And now that we think it's moving forward, we'll send those documents out to I think the Chairman Hoskins is already authorized to sign them, and I think the mayor is as well at a council meeting that you guys have been authorized to execute that land trade. So that will be the next step, and then we'll submit at the end of August. We're going to project review on Tuesday with the city's design review team. Okay.
So you need no action on that.
No action on that, no, just update.
Just information. Good
And-
news. Good news.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
Welcome.
The final item I have, Mr. Chairman, is just,
Before we leave there, is there any update on the Memorial Park or Memorial Field grandstand work that's being done? I know Miller Stauffer was,
on the grandstand?
Yes.
It's, from my understanding, it's on hold right now, and it's teed up should the board want to do anything on that.
Miller Stauffer has completed all his work that he was asked to do, though.
Preliminary estimates of cost, and as
so
you're,
it's in our court at this point in time.
and as you recall, we put money into we put $1 million into the fiscal 18 budget for that project, should the board want to move on it anytime soon. I'm not sure, before Phil leaves, I'm not sure where it would fit into the timing.
That's why I'm asking Nate now, because everything's under construction over there in Memorial Field at this point in time.
It is. The construction that the current project is doing is primarily on the north side of it, and we're trying to stay away from the east and west sides of the grandstand. And the construction of the grandstand would all have to occur from the southeast side. So I'll say this with a mild bit of conviction, but when we're done with the field, nobody better touch it. Because I can tell you, we're investing a tremendous amount of time and effort, and the contractor ours is as well, to dial that field in, because we really want it to be both very appealing when you drive by and when you play on it. So there's a tremendous amount of time going into the grading, the treatment of the subsoils, the irrigation system, and all those things. So long way of saying, if something does happen to that, it will primarily happen from the southeast side, from the plaza there.
So really, we should be thinking about this for next year's project, next summer's project versus this summer, any kind of construction there.
Yeah, I would anticipate the size of that project, you will probably be going out to solicitation for architects on it, because it will probably kick you above the QBS threshold. And so maybe you'll get some respondents to that, and then get it under design in the winter and out to bid in the hopefully early spring, because as you all know, the construction market is vigorous.
Great.
Along those lines of his question, do we need Phil to talk with Dick and come up with any kind of just a basic plan on how that would be staged or that construction would be done without hurting the field, or a timeline or something? We brought up, some good issues here.
We've talked about it, and essentially, yeah, Dick and I have talked about it, and there's, in fact, when you look at the project as we finish it, you'll look at the northeast side of it and say, this looks unfinished, but it's unfinished on purpose, because in the concept, the entryway will now be on the Northwest Boulevard side of the grandstand and not the Park Drive side, or Fort Grounds Drive side. And so when you go out there and you look at that project as we move forward, you'll kind of say, why aren't we doing something here? Well, that's the reason, because that will be the primary construction entrance to get into the upper part of the field. The same thing, as far back as Memorial Plaza, when we were working on that project, we put, we'll call them the bones in, to planning ahead in the event that this might happen. So all the water and sewer services are into the building, the fire services into it. Those things are ready. So hopefully there'll be a minimal amount of disturbance to the Memorial Plaza itself.
Great, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks, Phil.
Final honor, Mr. Chairman, is just regarding the ICRIMP insurance policy, terrorism insurance coverage. Once again, our insurance representative suggested that we decline the ICRIMP offer for additional terrorism insurance. ICRIMP carries a $50 million terrorism insurance policy for its clients. If we were to want this additional terrorism policy, it's going to cost us extra $5,000. There really is no need to do it, so we do this every year, but we have to formally decline terrorism coverage if you so agree. So,
Second.
that's all I
Moved
have.
and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Now's the time for board commissioner comments.
The only thing that I had is that last night Jim Hammond announced that he's going to be retiring at the end of this year. When Jim came on board 3 years ago, he and I discussed the position, and Jim knew this was going to be his last stop before retirement, and he served us well, and he'll be retiring at the end of December. And so we'll be in the process of filling Jim's position, but we want to wish Jim, I think all of us know Jim, and we wish him well in retirement. He's had a few health issues that he's overcome in the last year, so we're grateful that he gets to go into retirement healthy. So we're happy for him.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to make one comment on the Tilford Lane property. I want to really say that this was a great effort by you, Steve, and the city council to come up with a plan that takes the property over here on Young Avenue and potentially gets that to the Tubbs Hill Foundation. They were so passionate in their presentation to us a couple months ago, and this is just such a great proposal to take two pieces of property and get the best value out of both. So it's really leadership like yours that's really leading right now, and I think the city is seeing the benefit of this.
Well, both those projects we saw is you're just putting two basically unusable pieces of property together to make some value. And I had a little help with Phil Boyd. I have to give him a lot of credit on it because he and I had looked at the project and kind of, I'd asked him a lot of questions, and I get a lot of free advice from Phil, but he helped a lot with that. And so that,
Free advice is good.
yeah, so that created that, but it's going to be a win-win because the agency, obviously, any funds that come back from that are going to be plowed back into public projects, and then the public also is going to have the land there at the base of Tubbs Hill. So subject to all approval.
Sensitive and emotional topic, the land over here, and also hopefully some of the viewers realize that we're thinking, and that those 6 different time dimensions that we're looking, most of the time at least, at the forever time. And so decisions like that should really help solidify that. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice, very nice.
Yep.
Any other board commissioner comments? Thanks for that, it's good. time for public comment. Second public comment time. Please come forward and name and address, please.
Dennis Cunningham, Active West, 311 Coeur d'Alene Avenue, Suite C. I wanted to just kind of give an overview of what sandbox we've sort of been playing in at the city of Coeur d'Alene, and I don't want to take too much time, but Tony, do you have that exhibit that sort of shows the overall Celtice Way, Riverstone? I think it was the financial model exhibit. But Active West, a while back, put into escrow a property over by Fred Meyer that was zoned light industrial, and we processed that through a PUD in the city and created an 80-unit active adult community that was good for us, and I'm hoping good for the community, but that project won several national awards because of urban infill, sort of the walk mechanism. And so we sort of at that point went through the recession and decided to kind of make a commitment to move south from that project. And I don't have any project, or I don't own any real estate besides my house north of Fred Meyer. So we moved south of 90 and started to push on John Stone and the banks to try to purchase land in the Riverstone area along Celtice, downtown, whatever it may be. So the long and short of that was we ended up putting a project over on Celtice in escrow and processed a PUD with the city. And in doing that, I needed to put in almost about 3/4 of a mile of sewer on the north side of Celtice, which I did with the collaboration of, at that time it wasn't Ignite, but the Urban Renewal District. And that was from the Skate Plaza to the roundabout there at Circuit. And we're now finishing up our 5 last homes at that project. We then were down in Riverstone trying to buy a lot of land where apartments sit now, but was able to piecemeal a few pieces. We put together Riviera Walk, which is a gated community down there that has sold out. We then moved forward because the sites weren't large enough for a PUD, and we went into the pocket housing ordinance and finished pushed 2 projects through Riviera Court and Riviera Place down on Riverstone. And so there again, we're actively in those projects. We then picked up a couple parcels on each side of Red Robin, commercial land that were 2 vacant pads, and just closed, I think, in June on one of them, so a hotel could go in next to McDonald's because they didn't have adequate parking. We then bought 12 lots down at Belle Reve on secondary parcels, and now we're the guys that are in escrow on the 6.9 at UP. Why do I tell you all that? It's not because I need some accolades or who we are. What we're doing is we've committed to the company to come into an urban infill situation and try to create, with the site planning, the infrastructure, as well as the product, a successful end result, not just for me, but for a consumer. And that's where we have been and where we're at today. So over on the UP process, as you guys know, that's 120 years of Fort Sherman, multiple railroad right-of-ways, patents, whatever it may be. And we're working through that, and we believe we've kind of got down to a short list. But we still have to move through that. Yes, we do have interest in the Ignite piece that's adjacent to part of this piece. And hopefully when all's said and done and we can get through that, we can create a neat little PUD project, not just with yours, but the entire way, that brings back sort of the theme of the railroad and the logging that took place down there, just like we did with Meadow Ranch, the old dairy barn that was there built in the early 40s, and the windmill and what happened down there. So we're trying to make the efforts to not just, put some money in our pocket, but also something that the city down there can seem to be proud of, the transition of whatever it may be. If we acquire it, trade it, whatever it might happen. So as we move forward, yes, we initiated having the All West testing do the Phase 1 that was done on your site as well as so that they could come up with numbers to tell you how much soil was bad. We've spent close to $30,000 on an Alta survey on the property as well as some of yours to dial in 100 and some years of transition. And so we're at a point now where we're ready to move forward, working with some title items on that specific area. We also have interest, and there's been discussions with people in this room about your Tilford property, because I have 23 lots just down the way that we've sold out at Riviera Walk. And so we would be interested as well to take that project. If you didn't want to put in the entire amount of the infrastructure to finish lots, we would be interested to take that to the next level. Anyway, I didn't mean to come up here and toot or whatever, but we're here, we're working with your planning department and engineering and the senior staff to work through pocket housing, PUDs, whatever we can. And just recently, we got another email. A small project I did over on Davidson was one of the last pocket housing. It was a 7-unit. And so I've learned that Vision 2030 and the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Group is getting together and wanted a couple of the people that actually bought our pocket housing, which just so happened one of them was a physical therapist at the hospital, to interview as they start to take a look at that, I don't want to say corridor, but that trade area of what's going on with our medical infrastructure, housing, parking, and the amenities that go around with it. And we're right there in the middle of it. We have a couple other sites over on Emma and Escrow. So we're trying to push forward, work with staff to better these repositioning types of pieces of real estate. So that's sort of my little, I guess, my commercial. But anyway, we're here, we're wanting to do it. We've put some time and money and effort into it and actually set our course kind of in that area. And you notice, there's not a lot of guys down doing it because they don't want to pay that price for the dirt, or they don't want to go to the city staff and deal with all the issues that you have to do. It's not a builder's a builder. They're not looking for all that. Well, we'll throw it in our basket and see if we can't try to make something out of it. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.
Aye.